Hello, welcome to natemareflix. I am Nate, you or you, and today we are looking at the filmography of James Wan, or I should be more specific, we are looking at the horror filmography of James Wan. That is his bread and butter, that is where he made his bones, and this is a horror channel, so of course, we're not going to be sitting here talking about Aquaman. It's not the time or the place. So go down in the comment section, hit me with what your favorite James Wan movie is, what is your least favorite, and let me know what you think of my ranking. I can't wait to go ahead and get into this one. So let's not delay, let's go ahead and hit the intro, which by the way, I actually use a little bit of music from a James Wan film. Hit me up in the comment section if you know which film it is. Let's go. At number 7, last place, it is the new kid on the block. It is James Wan's Malignant. This film is very, very different. It feels very original and it feels so unlike anything else we get right now. It is a strange little beast with a lot going on. I think my biggest problem with it was just my expectations were not met. And that's not necessarily fair to this film or James Wan. It was just marketed as being this horrifying, terrifying film. You looked at the advertisements and they were like, from the masterful mind of James Wan, the next big thing in terror that is going to shock you and knock you and rock you right off of your senses, leave you quaking in your nightmares, that type of thing. That was the energy they brought with the marketing, and instead we got a movie with virtually no scares whatsoever, hardly any tension whatsoever. I mean, in the beginning they had it, and that's also part of the problem. I feel like at the beginning there is a moment where the protagonist's husband is looking around his house and James Wan is just really showing off. I mean, we have all sorts of different views of this house. We have overhead shots. We have little slow pans across the room, all sorts of beautiful framing, playing with depth of field, making you really scan everything within the house, looking for the threat and feeling like anything could happen. You're like, oh my God, Malignant is about to be my favorite James Wan film. This is going to be one of his scariest films ever. And then the whole thing kind of devolves into a campy, over-the-top, almost slapstick at times type of movie with really cringy dialogue. And yes, this was all intentional. It's intentionally over the top. The bizarre music choices that are cranked up and super loud, and they cut to a character who's like, ah! The weird line delivery where somebody has a line such as this, it's time to cut out the cancer. And then it zooms on their face like that. It's all intentional. He knows what he's doing. He knows what he's going for. Just not what I was expecting him to go for, and it made it to where I couldn't really engage with the film fully. I didn't care about any of these characters. I was never scared. It just made everything a bit head-scratching for me and making me really want the old school James Wan, even if that's not fair. I just feel like we had better, more honest marketing. Maybe that would have worked. Another big deduction for this movie because there's so much CGI. And I think when you look at the premise of this film, when you look at that Gabriel villain, you couldn't have really done it without CGI. Unfortunately, horror and CGI go together about as well as pudding and pickles. So yeah, just this is my last place. I don't care if you love it. Okay, I'll take it back. I care if you love it, and I will talk to you about it. I totally understand it. It's a technical marvel. Just it wasn't engaging, and I couldn't connect myself to it. And at times I was just really like shaking my head. So Malignant at number 7. At number 6, it is Insidious Chapter 2. And in the wake of the first Insidious film, we were all like, oh wow, this franchise is going to be huge. We're going to have so many big iconic characters coming out of the Insidious franchise, and we had so many questions we wanted answers to. We had to know what was going to happen with Josh. What about that woman in black character? And then the answers we got, they were okay, but they weren't really what we were expecting. And again, like I talked about with Malignant, if anything, they had you scratching your head because you're like, who's the woman in black? And you find out, oh, well, she's not a woman at all. That's Parker Crane. And Parker Crane's mother didn't want him to be a boy. So she was very abusive and she made him into a woman. So later in life, when he would kill, he would dress up as the woman in black. And you're like, oh, all right. All right, I guess I'll take that. But just so much of the movie is kind of like that. And this movie really lacked the memorable scenes. I feel like the first Insidious has so many moments that burn themselves into your mind. They became like iconic parts of horror cinema. That jump scare, for example, that is one of the most known jump scares of all time. This movie just kind of felt like it came and it went. And it's really hard to retain a lot of it when you look back at it. Good performances, a couple good scares, a few horror villains here and there throughout that you'd be like, okay, they're a notch above your normal generic horror film, but nothing really to shake you. Nothing to scare you, nothing to make you go, yes, I can't wait for Insidious 3. I really hope they continue the story somehow. If they didn't, they kind of pivoted with Insidious 3, and I think that actually made Insidious 3 better, which does not say much about Insidious 2. So it's not spectacular, it's just solid, and that's why it's number 6. At number 5 is a movie that I don't think gets enough credit. I'm talking about Dead Silence. This is such a nice little underrated horror film. It came on the heels of Saw. I do believe that is why it is overshadowed. It just wasn't the type of thing that was big at the time. And that's sad because I much prefer Dead Silence to really any of the Saw sequels. There's so much going on here. There's so much merit to it. There's so much entertainment to it. You get Mary Shaw in this film. Mary Shaw should have been a horror icon. She's got it all. Some really great scares, some great tension. She has the presence on the screen. She looks menacing. She looks terrifying, but she also has this really fascinating lore. She's kind of like Freddy Krueger in that she has the little like childlike nursery rhyme about her that just fills in all the blanks on her mythos and really makes it easy to latch onto her and her legend. And there's so many wonderful moments in this film. I love the way this film is shot. I love the way that they actually do involve a little bit of camp. I think it works a lot better in Dead Silence than it did in Malignant. That's just me. There's just so many things about the movie that I like. And there are things that I noticed and I'm like, this could have been better. And it probably would have been better if there wasn't so much damn studio interruption with this film. James Wan was not able to present his full vision. But even with that, we got a really great, tight film with some good scares, a wonderful villain, and one hell of an awesome twist. If you haven't seen Dead Silence, go check it out. At number 4, it's The Conjuring 2, and I actually worked at a movie theater when this film came out, and it was so much fun to see people just lose their wits and run out of the auditorium, take off past the ticket stand and just burn right out of the lobby. I one time had this big burly redneck guy go by me just like, man, that is bullshit. How you expect me to watch something like that and drive home alone in the dark by myself? I'm gonna go to sleep tonight. And I just thought that was awesome. To me, what better compliment can you get as a horror film? It was so fun to watch these reactions. And then I went and saw the movie by myself and I had a great time. I thought Valak was an instant icon. I thought when we got a standalone Valak film, it would be an all-time great, that it'd be scary as hell. Unfortunately, it wasn't. It was The Nun. But The Nun is not this movie, so let's talk about this movie. The rest of the movie, really good. Some of the best character work of anything in The Conjuring. Some of the best scares. Of course, I mentioned Valak, the thing where Valak goes over and grabs a painting, comes across the room. All really wonderful stuff. It's also great to kind of touch on that infield haunting because it's a lot of fun to break it down, bring it to the cinematic universe, and I actually like that they kind of toe the line. They present both sides of, if you believe in this type of stuff, we got some stuff for you. But if you call foul and you say this is all a hoax, we're kind of with you there too, and we'll present that side of it. It doesn't really take a side, but it plays to both sides, and I think it actually does pull that off. The reason, though, I cannot put this film above the first Conjuring is every time I sit down to watch it, it starts, and I'm like, wow, this is really good. This is an intense ride. I'm having a great time. This movie is so much more scary than the first Conjuring, I think. I feel that way, right? And I keep sitting there, I'm like, oh, what's happening? What's happening? Why is the magic leaving me? Why am I checking my watch? It's because the runtime just goes on way too long. This film is so bloated and it really needs some stuff cut out of it, I feel like, because it loses so much of its effect. And it makes it to where I don't really want to rewatch it all the time because I'm like, I don't really want to slog through that little section of the film. And for that reason, it's going to come in just below the other Conjuring film. So obviously number 3 is The Conjuring. And look, paranormal, spiritual, haunting, ghost, demon type of films, they're not really my bag. I mean, The Exorcist is what got me into horror as a boy. It scared the bejesus out of me, but it kind of set a standard that has yet to ever be met. And really, a lot of times, The Conjuring just feels like it is using the Exorcist playbook to, a lesser effect. But that's kind of every one of those movies. Everybody just kind of looks back to The Exorcist, uses those plays and tries to execute them, not usually coming out to such a great, effective level as like The Conjuring. The Conjuring just does it better than everybody else if you want this type of film. Lovely atmosphere. I love the family. It's a large family, but yet you don't really feel like anybody gets lost. The family unit feels front and center. It adds a warmth to the film. The house feels like a character in itself, and that is huge. You need that in these type of movies because you need to feel like you are there in the home with them, and you need to feel like the house itself is alive and presenting danger behind every turn within its confines. This movie definitely captures that. And then the fact that the movie just kind of spirals out of control in the best way in the third act. Now, when I say out of control, I don't mean James Wan ever loses control of his film. I mean that you have this steady building tension. You have these like building actions, these rising actions, and then when you hit a crescendo and you reach the the climax of the film, there is such a substantial payoff. I love that exorcism scene where the mom is splitting the sheet over her head. She's got that like yellow contact in, looking crazy, looking wild, looking like a beast from hell, blood in the blanket, all of that. It's stuff that burns itself into your mind just like a scary film should. So I gotta tout that. I gotta give it all the praise. This is not my subgenre, but I understand that for a modern film of that subgenre, it doesn't get better than The Conjuring. Number 2, it is Saw. I feel like it's really easy to poo-poo Saw because of the legacy of all the other films. It just, we started getting one every single year, and to lesser and lesser effect, that series just gets so darn messy. I did a franchise ranking of these things, and it is the toughest franchise ranking I've ever had to do because there's so many of the films, and you just feel like your brain is rotting when you sit there and watch 1 or 2 a night for a week on end. But the first one is incredible. There's a couple other sequels in there too that are pretty damn solid, but the first one, it's the best one, no doubt, and it's all about Leigh Whannell's writing and James Wan's direction. They take a film that had no right to be as good as it was, really had no budget, and they make it irrefusable. Because you think about the legacy of Saw, and that it is the grandfather of this quote-unquote torture porn, and you're like, that's not really a great film, right? That's not a 4.5 out of 5 stars film, Nate. I saw your Letterboxd. Why'd you put that? And that's because no matter how bad I want to deny the power of Saw, I just can't. I can't tell you how many times I've seen this thing running on TV or on HBO or something like that, or seen it on Netflix. I'm like, I got a little bit of time. I click away, right? I can go watch something else if I'm not feeling it. I always feel it. I always get roped in. You always kind of forget just how great Saw is until you sit down and take it in again. I don't need to talk about the plot twist and go into the details of it. We all know it. It's one of the best twists of all time. I talked about the great twist in Dead Silence. The twist at the end of Saw is James Wan's best twist, and this is a guy who is known for his twists. You go to see a James Wan film, you know you're getting a twist. He'll never be able to top what happens with John Kramer at the end of that film. When he stands up, slams that door, and you hear the Zepp music playing, that is an all-time great ending in horror from a film that doesn't necessarily always get the credit for it because everybody sees it as being torture porn, this grisly, nasty, exploitative movie. That's not what this movie is, though. This movie, it's a really great little mystery movie that just winds and bends and keeps you guessing, and at the end you go, oh, what? I need to rewatch that now. And that is why it's so high up on this list. Everybody, give you proper credit to Saw. At number 1, it is Insidious. Insidious is a very important film to me. I love this film, but also I think it was very necessary when it came out because at that point, we're just getting a different Saw sequel every year. We're getting a different Paranormal Activity sequel every year. And these sequels are getting boring. They're getting stale, and they are devolving their franchises. And then James Wan comes out of nowhere and goes, look at this subgenre. You think you know what it can be. You think you know the parameters and the confines, but we can do so much better. We can still break ground. We can have new great horror icons in The Woman in Black or in the Lipstick Demon, the Darth Maul Demon, old red face, whatever you want to call him. This movie has so much going for it. I love that just cuckoo bananas, crazy string music. It feels like a callback to like the old black and white days of horror cinema. This family unit that is front and center. They are the best characters in the James Wan filmography. You root for each of them. And then Josh has a twist there at the end. One of the best twists in horror. One of the best cliffhangers in horror. You got fantastic music. You got fantastic characters. You got fantastic villains. You got fantastic moments you will always remember. One of the most shocking jump scares of all time, like I mentioned earlier. So much to love about Insidious, a film that just seems so ambitious compared to so many other films in this genre. And The Conjuring gets so much love and acclaim. And like I said, it does all the things right. It's kind of by the numbers, but it does everything to the nth degree and just right. Insidious kind of goes outside of the numbers, though, by my estimation, and it gives you a lot of real fun stuff that you hadn't seen before or you hadn't seen done in that manner. And when you have seen it done before, it's just so much better. You look at the seance scene. So many different paranormal movies have like a paranormal expert come in, a demonologist, a priest, somebody who's going to save these characters because they have the know-how and they have the secret recipe for defeating evil. And then they do a seance. Seen it 1,000 times, but it's never been done or carried out to the extent that it was in Insidious with Elise and her crew. And Lynn Shaye is fantastic. She's the best paranormal expert that has ever come into any horror film in my mind off the top of my head. And you know that's true because she really became the heart and soul of this franchise going forward. So I don't think it's a popular opinion, but I feel pretty damn good about saying Insidious is the best James Wan horror movie. Be sure to comment yours down below. Let me know what you thought of the video. What is your favorite James Wan film? What's your least favorite? What do you think of Malignant? Because what a crazy, just out there, unique movie that was. Other than that, though, thank you for checking the video out. I hope you had a good time. I hope you have a fantastic day. I'm Nate from natemareflix, and that's a wrap.